Hello and welcome to the Lebenspraxis Podcast with Josef Bartz, where we explore practicing living a life of purpose, actions and decisions, and ask, what is the good life? In today's episode, I start with answering a question, a very general question. The question is, what are other parts of the Lebenspraxis besides physical training? So first of all, what I call Lebenspraxis is an approach. It's in its essence not a method. Our teaching is methodical, but the idea in general is to approach life as something to involve yourself in, to do, to practice. Therefore, what you do exactly matters much less than the attitude towards life. This is what I want to share with you mainly, this attitude towards involving yourself into being. And that can actually also mean doing nothing. And you might want to check my video on that, and will be available in the show notes. I think life is a verb. You live in reciprocity with what is around you, and you have an effect on it. It has an effect on you, the environment, the people, and so on. And you're gifted with the ability to make decisions, with steering your own ship. Practicing means to acknowledge you are a verb, something of constant change. And the world around you is as well. Life is serious. Give it the attention it deserves. But why? Why should I do that? And I already mentioned the idea of having a vision in episode number 2 about focus. I want to tell you how it is for me personally, and maybe it resonates with you. I am in this world. I am alive, and I want to be alive. I want to explore. I'm curious. I want to develop. Every day I wake up with a curiosity, with a creativity. We humans are gifted with this endless possibility to develop. We can create and explore and express. And there's another thing that we can do. We can take care of things. We can go beyond ourselves and realize that there are things above or bigger than us. Look around, yeah? We have shaped the world. We can change things around us in the environment, but also affecting others around us. So realizing that we can take care, I realized for myself that this ability is actually more of an imperative. Take care of yourself. You can do that. Take care of what is around you. You can do that. Therefore, my purpose in life is 100% clear to me, I would say. I'm a living human being. I develop. This is a given. Every day I develop. And I help and support others, and especially my children, my family, my friends and participants and the region and the environment and nature I'm living in. So I take care of my life, and I take care of the life and the things around me. I have the feeling that there's a balance to be found with this yourself and what is around you, outside yourself, and how much do you take care of yourself and other things around you and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you can always argue that if possible, these are not separated. But definitely, if you circle too much around yourself, it makes people miserable. Self-fulfillment is to be thought about as reciprocal with your environment. It's crucial to take care of yourself and to develop the potential that you have. That needs to be very clear. But actually it should not be a but. Maybe it's better as and you exist in relationship to what is around you. And obviously you have to find your own realizations about this. You have to contemplate and to feel if you're doing things because other people have told you to do them, it will always lack power. You will always feel a bit weird, a bit unsure. Ignore all the silly Instagram motivations. Do you need to do movement training? Of course you do not. It's good to understand what it does, what are the effects, what is its place, and then you can decide for yourself. That's how it is with everything, I guess. Be open and look into the things, try to understand what is there, and then decide. Are you going into this or are you going into this? What suits you? Blah, 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 blah. You cannot do anything, but you can get an overview of the things that are there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would say that's also part of this Lebenspraxis approach. So the idea of approaching life as a practice on the one hand, and also this openness, this exploration of life, and in the sense knowing life, knowing what is there. Okay, let's go back to the question a bit more concretely now. The physical training is just what I have shown and taught most in the last 10 years. So I do not teach all the things that I practice myself, because at many of them I don't feel I'm at the level of teaching them. But still I want to mention some ideas where I think you could involve yourself and see them as a practice. And notice this is just a brainstorm list, because what I already said is approaching life as a practice can involve everything, anything you can approach as a practice. So it's just a list to spark some ideas. Movement, physicality, music, crafting, wisdom, awareness, nutrition, cooking, gardening, survival, driving, mathematics, logic, language, meditation, helping, supporting, ethics, history, spirituality, knowledge, farming, breathing, singing, communication, nothing, and relationships. And relationships, I would say, is maybe I allow myself to use a superlative now and say it's maybe the most important practice. How do we live together with other people? How do we live a good life with others? And relationships are not easy. How many people have problems with their parents? How many have separated from their husband or wife? I don't find it particularly inspiring if people are doing one-arm handstands but seem not to be able to have good relationships with other people. I think I got much better in this practice in recent years. Maybe I was never super bad, but definitely also not at an, let's say, epic level you would read books about. And this is, I think, especially also through the help of my children. Many people I know are quite involved in themselves, and they have no steady relationship and no children. And obviously there are people that are not able to get children, and I know several, and I'm obviously not talking about these, yeah? And I understand that life has chosen a different path for them. But I talk about the people that seem to be afraid to let go of themselves, because getting children is a bit of a death happening to you. You go into a state of giving, of taking care, of being a grown-up. We live in this society of constant transition, moving, changing the job, changing the relationships. Something better is lurking at every corner. And that's also how relationships are approached. Yeah, I'm not sure about the relationship, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, a bad relationship has to be cancelled. Obviously, staying together with someone behaving not good and not willing to change behavior is not the right thing. Leave a bad relationship immediately. But what I talk about is there's something that doesn't fit 100%, so I think about leaving attitude. Relationship is a verb. It's not a fixed thing that is a certain way. The people in the relationship live it through their actions. So you need to commit and focus. Relationships are a practice. And I would say the two things to stay together for a long time in a relationship is exactly this. Commit and see the relationship as a practice. Like commit to stay together, and both persons in the relationship need to see the relationship as a verb, an ongoing thing that is a practice. So in a sense, again, it's about focus. Nowadays we know so many people through the internet, through our work, through living in the city, and so on and so forth. There's so many people, and there's way too many people that we know to have really active relationships with. Maybe you can relate to this. So there are friendships that are effortless to maintain. You see each other anyway all the time, and you spend time with each other, and you live close to each other and blah, 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 blah. And there are friendships where the contact is a bit more difficult to maintain, usually because there is further distance between you. One is living in this city and one is living in the other city. And to be a bit more active about such friendships, for me, it feels like a good practice. Yeah, because I recently realized that if you're not active about it, this is just disappearing. There are people that are very important for me, and then suddenly I realize, in 2 years we didn't speak at all. And then to take the phone and to call them or to write them a message or whatever is the way of keeping the contact, that's a good thing. I think you would probably agree with me when I say that keeping contact alive with people that you don't see face to face sort of regularly, or that you, let's say in a sense, end up interacting with in an effortless way, it's just happening, that this contact is difficult to maintain and it can drain into the sand and the thread can be lost. And obviously it makes no sense to maintain all sorts of friendships with too many people and just be occupied with this and blah, blah, blah. But maybe you have the same thing, that there's 1 or 2 friends that you come up with where you realize, actually this is an important person for me, but we haven't spoken in a while. So relationships are practice. Okay, let's sum it up, because this was actually a very, very important question for me. The Lebenspraxis, that's not about physical training, movement training. This is just one thing that can be approached as a practice. And I think it has a strong effect, very strong effect in our today's society, because our society lacks physicality. So the effect is very profound of a physical practice in today's world, because we are so disconnected from it. Yeah, it's a very low-hanging fruit, and it's very good to start with that for most people, to go more into it, being more connected with the atom-based part of this life, you could say, through moving yourself through space, through moving yourself. Because if you have this connection with yourself, you can build things very well on top of it, like crafting, like relationship skills, but also general understanding of how the world works. I think this is a very, very good base. But also people realize if you make this your sole practice, you can end up in a Cul-de-sac, Sackgasse für die Deutschen. And then all the meaning questions start, like, why am I doing this? Da, 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 da. Maybe that's actually the sign of having went a bit too far. I mean, if you ask it yourself in the beginning, it means that you didn't go into it enough to see all the effects, because then the effects are answering the question. But if you're practicing for years and you ask yourself, actually, why am I doing this? Then it might be a good idea to step out of the tunnel again and reflect and look at it and ask yourself, are you practicing this because you feel it makes sense? Or are you practicing this because you see other people are doing this and it seems to be the right thing and blah, 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 all this nonsense. So the Lebenspraxis is an approach. It's about seeing life as a verb and as something to involve yourself in, to do and to practice. What you do exactly maybe matters less than how you do it, than how you approach it. There's a nice video that fits here well. It's from Marina Abramovic, a very, very interesting artist if you don't know her, and I can definitely recommend to read her autobiography. She has this short video on how to drink the water, and I will put it in the show notes. And that video is basically showing this in a nutshell. How you do things is important, not just what you do. And in that sense, making this podcast is also a practice for me. And in episode number 2, I played around with the cutting quite a lot, and I cut the things quite sharp. So the speed is very high. In episode number 3, I left more time in between the words. And in this episode, I will leave even more time. And for me, it would be actually quite interesting to know how the 3 different episodes are different. And it might be that one of you says, yeah, episode number 2 for me it was very great listening to it, and another one says, oh, for me it was too fast and I liked this episode much more. Obviously often the opinions are very spread out in that regard, but still it would be quite interesting for me to know what sort of experience you have, because it would provide me with some information about how do you make a good podcast. That's one of my practices now as well. Good. Thank you for listening. As I said before, I love conversations and I'm very thankful for every comment and email. This is the nutrition the podcast is living off. You can send me emails to contact@josefbartz.de, or write a comment on YouTube. If you like the podcast, please consider telling other people. Spreading the word is still a very powerful way to let things spread in the world. Much more pure than the mysterious algorithm. Thank you for your support and see you soon. Ciao.